April 1453. A cold, gray dawn rises over Constantinople, the last surviving remnant of the Roman world. For more than 1,000 years, these walls had stopped every army that dared to attack them, but this time was different. Outside the city stood an army unlike anything Europe had ever seen. 80,000 soldiers, engineers, cannon makers, warriors from 3 continents. At just 21 years old, their ruler had sworn to capture the city or die beneath its walls. Inside the city, barely 7,000 defenders prepare for a siege that could end their world. Food is rationed, arrows are counted, every sword is sharpened by hand. In the harbor, a heavy iron chain stretches across the water, blocking enemy ships from entering. Outside the walls, engineers position the largest cannon ever built. The barrel is longer than a man. The stone projectile weighs more than a horse. When it fires, the sound will be heard miles away. The first blast shakes the earth. Stone cracks, mortar crumbles. A section of the ancient wall fractures under the impact. Inside the city, people freeze. The sound rolls through streets like thunder. This is no ordinary siege. This is the end of an empire that has stood for 1,000 years. Day after day, the cannons fire without rest, their thunder echoing across the sea and through the trembling city streets. Each explosion tears deeper cracks into the ancient stone, forcing exhausted defenders to rebuild the walls every single night. The air smells of smoke, wet earth, and burning powder as dust settles over rooftops and narrow stone alleys. Sleep becomes impossible. Every distant rumble forces soldiers awake, gripping their weapons before the next impact strikes the walls again. Outside, engineers carefully cool the overheated cannon barrels, pouring water over metal that hisses violently in the cold air. The siege becomes a test of endurance, a battle of patience, measured in shattered stone and fading strength. For weeks, the massive iron chain across the harbor keeps enemy ships trapped outside the Golden Horn. The defenders believe the sea is their final protection, a barrier no fleet could possibly overcome. But during the night, something impossible begins to happen beyond the hills north of the city. Under cover of darkness, hundreds of men drag wooden ships across greased logs laid over the earth. The sound of creaking wood and grinding timber echoes through the night air as ships move over land. By morning, the unthinkable is revealed. Enemy warships float inside the protected harbor. Panic spreads silently through the city as defenders realize their last secure route has been breached. Now the city is surrounded on every side by land and by sea. With the harbor breached, artillery fire intensifies, striking the same weakened sections of wall again and again. Defenders focus all efforts on a single shattered gate, reinforcing it with timber, sandbags, and broken masonry. Every hammer strike echoes through the courtyard as men work, knowing the next bombardment could destroy everything. Outside, siege towers are assembled piece by piece, rising slowly above the level of the city walls. Ladders are stacked in rows beside infantry units, waiting for the signal to advance. The air grows heavy with anticipation, as both armies understand the final assault is approaching. Inside the city, civilians gather in churches, whispering prayers beneath dim candlelight and stone domes. Soldiers receive final instructions along the walls, checking bowstrings, shields, and remaining supplies. As night falls, torches illuminate both camps, revealing thousands of silhouettes preparing for dawn. No music, no speeches echo through the darkness. Only wind, distant murmurs, and the crackle of burning wood. Before sunrise, the attacking army forms into disciplined ranks, facing the battered walls of Constantinople. Just before sunrise, a signal is given, and the first wave of infantry begins moving toward the shattered outer walls. Drums beat slowly to maintain rhythm as soldiers cross uneven ground filled with debris and broken stone. Archers on the walls release volleys downward, arrows cutting through the cold air above the advancing ranks. Ladders are lifted and pressed against weakened stone as attackers attempt to climb toward the defenders. The first assault is repelled, forcing the attackers to fall back and regroup beyond bow range. Moments later, a second wave advances, larger and more determined, moving directly toward the most damaged section. Cannons fire again to weaken the breach further, shaking the ground before infantry rush forward. A portion of the outer wall collapses inward, creating a narrow opening filled with smoke and falling debris. Attackers surge toward the opening, climbing over rubble and broken masonry to force their way inside. Hand-to-hand fighting erupts within the breach as defenders attempt to hold the collapsing line. More attackers pour through the opening, gradually overwhelming the exhausted defenders along the inner barricades. A secondary gate is forced open from inside, allowing additional forces to enter the city streets. The defending line finally breaks. An organized resistance along the outer wall collapses. For the first time in 1,000 years, enemy soldiers stand inside the walls of Constantinople. Infantry units move carefully through narrow stone streets, advancing in formation past abandoned market stalls and shattered doors. Residents remain hidden inside their homes as armored footsteps echo across the ancient pavement. On the highest towers, foreign banners replace the old imperial symbols that once flew over the city. The sound of resistance fades, replaced by distant commands and the controlled movement of occupying forces. The massive gates stand open, revealing the full scale of the army that now controls the city. What began as an ancient Roman capital now becomes the center of a rising imperial power. The fall of Constantinople marks the end of the Byzantine Empire after more than 1,000 years. Across Europe, news of the city's capture spreads rapidly, reshaping politics, trade, and the balance of power. The capture of Constantinople permanently changes the course of history between East and West. The city will continue under a new name, but its ancient walls will always remember the final siege.
If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe for more untold stories. Thanks for watching. See you next time.